My story started on the island of Bali, where I was born and raised, and my journey as a changemaker started when I started to see plastic pollution everywhere. How many of you have been to Bali before? All right, so I'm not talking to a group of strangers. You will have hopefully seen the beautiful side of Bali, but also perhaps seen the incredible growth of plastic pollution. And so at 12 years old, I said, enough is enough. What can I do to create change? And it set me off on this journey to speaking in front of thousands and millions of students around the world, connecting with government leaders, but most importantly, from age 12 to 23, I've recognized the power of storytelling, how we can cut through the noise and make sure that we build momentum through collaborations, through working together with incredible people from Bali and beyond. So just as we get started, and thank you once again to all of you for being here tonight, a couple of mentions of whom this event would not be possible. Thank you to the Swire Trust team for bringing together all these incredible humans, but also for the workshop that we'll be talking more about in a moment. And of course, National Geographic Storytellers Collective. I know we have some explorers in the room. We have Yannick and Maria. A big thank you to you as well for always creating space for us to share stories. So you see behind me, I've got three incredible humans that we're now going to introduce you to. So Luke, May, and Martin, thank you so much for your time today. I'd like to kick off with an introduction to each of you and your stories, but we are going to shake it up because we learned one thing in the workshop that we just did over the last 3 days on immersive storytelling. Martin, you and Frederick taught us about the 6-word story. Can you just set the tone to why the 6-word story introduction? What's that important? Why is that important? And then kick us off with what your 6-word story is.
Sure. Is this on? You hear me? Yeah. Yeah, during a workshop or any kind of gathering of people, when you want to go into storytelling, you usually have to start with identifying with other people, and the best way is doing that by telling something about yourself. So the 6-word story is just a way to get down to the very core of who you are in that moment, what drives you forward, what you're passionate about, or what's like your... How can you describe yourself in something as short as 6 words? So we did that with all the participants. They all got to try, and it was a fantastic way to quickly get into who is in the room. We were 16 participants, and everyone, at first they got panic in their eyes, like, oh, how do I summarize my life in 6 words? But then they all told a 6-word story. And mine, at this moment in time, was becoming a father changed my perspective. That was mine. What was yours?
Mine was an island girl on a mission. Luke, you were a participant of the workshop. Tell us your 6-word story intro.
Well, that's a very interesting task. I took around like 15 minutes, I guess, to think about it. But I do think that every one of us should make one. And then mine is empowering local while exploring the city.
Wow, okay, and it makes sense because when you hear Luke's story a little bit more in depth later, a local tour guide guiding us through Hong Kong and connecting us through food, which brings us to May. Can you tell us what your 6-word story? She probably had the least amount of time to prepare because it was 10 minutes before the panel that I was like, May, do you feel comfortable introducing yourself in 6 words? So what did you come up with?
Well, in these 5 minutes, bold voice, bold food, bold aspirations.
Ooh, can we get a round of applause for that one? That was pretty good. Yes. So before we dive a little bit deeper into our individual stories and how we use storytelling to really impact and create change, Martin, can you tell us a little bit with what we were up to the last 3 days with Nat Geo and the Swire Trust here in Hong Kong with those 14 participants that you mentioned?
Sure. Yes, we were here thanks to the Swire Trust and the National Geographic Society. We're here from the Storytellers Collective doing a workshop on immersive storytelling. That's the world I come from, the world of new types of media and formats expanding into the storytelling of tomorrow. So we were really here trying to ignite a new sort of development into that sort of storytelling with local participants coming from both the conservation space, some were already storytellers, but in regular traditional media, and several were from this vibrant city. We even had we had people coming up with everything from food stories to strict conservation stories on the marine life of Hong Kong, but also teachers in the room working with kids on a daily basis. So we were trying to ignite that spark of looking at storytelling in a new way, exploring new formats, and making it possible to engage with your audience in a completely new way. That was basically what it's about.
Yeah, I think the new way and the different formats was really eye-opening for me. Traditionally, storytelling meant, a book or a really good speaker. And one quote that really stuck with me is, a good speaker wants to make you listen to their stories, but a great storyteller makes you want to take action. Right? And the different formats of how storytelling is shaping and changing in today's world is rapid, it's diverse, and a quick shout out to some VR headsets that we actually do have in the room. I saw a couple of you already trying it, but the team in the back, they've got the VR headsets. Martin and Frederick have created these incredible immersive experiences, and if you do have time and you have a moment to try them out, I highly recommend it because it shapes a different way of immersing yourself into a story. Luke, you were a participant of the workshop. What was that like for you? What surprised you? What did you take away from those 3 days?
A little bit more background information about myself. I'm Luke. I'm from a social enterprise that's run by myself called Kaifong Tour. So what's the meaning of Kaifong? That means neighbor and local. We run local tours by providing training to the local and also the neighbors to run different tours in Hong Kong, including like food tours, public housing estates, about some island, and also about the life story of a local people in Hong Kong. That's ranging from the youth, the elderly, as well as some underprivileged, like the ethnic minorities, as well as the homeless people in Hong Kong. And then one of the questions that I would like to ask you all is that what is the last time you share a story? Is it like a business pitching, or is it like a bedtime stories to your kids? For me, I almost tell story every day because it's my job to share stories to our audiences. And then before joining the workshop, I also wonder, what is the meaning of immersive storytelling? Do we really need to buy a headset? Do we really need to know what is the meaning and also the technical side of VR, AR, XR, and the terms? And then attending this workshop makes me realize that immersive storytelling is not only about the technical side. It's also about the whole experience design. It's also about our mindset. We can use props. We can use technology. We can leverage different kinds of tools to empower ourselves as a storyteller. And I believe that you all can be a good storyteller as well. So I think these 3 days workshops empower me as well to think about and also to rethink about how can I become a better storyteller.
I love that you mentioned that you tell stories every day because it's part of your job. And I think we don't realize that, but as you mentioned, again, storytelling and immersive storytelling comes in many different ways, shapes, or forms. And that's where, May, I'd love to hear about how you use storytelling in your everyday through the work that you do, bringing people together through food.
So I'm a restaurateur, and I've been doing restaurants for over 10 years, but my goal was never to become a chef. What I really loved about food was its inherent ability to make people happy, and it is very traditional way where you can force people to sit together and communicate and converse. And so and I always, every time I'm interviewed, I always joke because I became famous for making this Chinese burger, it's a steam bun. And we always put messages I want to send in a fluffy burger format. So, I'm also LGBT, I come from Hong Kong. There's a lot of messaging, I'm a empowered woman, and I live a very open life. And so on top of the ingredients, we always sprinkle a little bit of story. But it's not, and I think that through the story, we know a little bit more about Hong Kong culture, about how Chinese people eat, about who you're sharing that table with. So when we designed the kitchen or the restaurant, it was very open so you can experience and see what was going on. We also made the seats very small, one for rental issues, two because we wanted people to interact with people around them. And so we used to design the room so that we would, I always say examples of when we organize events, when I see, a trans person dining with my mother, with her friends, and then, a very diverse room of people, it makes me inherently very happy. And so for me, that was my contribution, I think, by using food to create stories for everybody.
Yeah, I love the painting that you created of having that dinner table conversation experience. How many of us have had those experiences with our family on holidays or even on a regular basis, right? It ties in again the importance of such a skill of storytelling, but creating those experiences, like Luke said, that it's not anymore just a conversation, but it brings together an experience over a table full of food. I want to jump to you, Martin, because you bring us on an experience. If you go on the VR headsets, you'll see you can either go to the Machu Picchu, you can go kayaking in Antarctica, and all within the comfort of where you are right now here in Hong Kong. So what was the goal that you wanted to achieve and the experience and the end goal that you had in mind when you were creating these immersive storytelling formats?
It depends on the story. It always comes down to the story. So, I mean, coming into working as a photographer and immersive storyteller, it's always about coming in with an open mind as you possibly can. You usually have a set story. Someone is giving you an assignment or there is somehow a story thread you think you're going to follow, but very rarely in the documentary space does that work. You go on expedition or you travel to the place where you're supposed to be documenting something. There's always going to be twists and turns in that story. And your job as a documentary filmmaker or immersive storyteller like me, you have to just follow that and make sure that those twists and turns in these often complex stories about the climate, for instance, that's a complex story that has to do with nature, with people, and it's a moving story that's going to evolve even when you're on the ground. So sometimes in one of the stories when we filmed, for instance, that you can try from a big expedition on Mount Everest, that we had a big plan of how to cover that expedition. It was a National Geographic expedition looking at climate change. Everyone knew what they were going to do, but then everything changed as soon as we get there because they couldn't access a certain glacier. Some of the lakes were frozen over, like weird temperature anomaly that no one had expected. So there's all kinds of these things that then become the story, and you just have to, as a filmmaker, you come there with your camera or your tools and you just follow whatever actually happens.
Yeah, I don't know about any of you, but before I go to bed tonight, I definitely want to go to the Everest. I mean, that sounds very cool. And you touch on something here, which is accessibility, right? How many of us in our lifetime will actually have the opportunity to go to the biggest cave in the world or to the top of the Everest and find and feel that connection? And that's where explorers, like the ones here at National Geographic, have access to. Luke, you have access to so many different communities here in Hong Kong. Tell us a little bit about what you want to share with the ones that you're bringing on these local tours.
Well, one of the key messages that I got from the workshop is assessing the inaccessible. During our daytime job, we visit to different places, locations that are quite inaccessible to some of us. For example, some local shops who appreciate the craftsmanship, they are the letterpress printer shop. For nowadays, we will not use letterpress, we will use some digital printing, but still there are some local shops here working very hard today. Another one is that we work with some local partners. For example, in the Southern District, there is a floating restaurant which is under conservation, which is called the Tai Bak, and then we collaborate with them because during that conservation period, we hope to let the public audience know the progress as well as the story behind. There's still a floating restaurant in Hong Kong. There are some examples for us. We hope we can not only tell the story by looking at the spot from the promenade, or from the textbook, or from a leaflet that's designed by us. We hope to bring the inaccessible life to the audience. Maybe they can appreciate at home, or maybe we can bring it to school, such that school kids can enjoy it, or maybe we can bring it to your office during lunchtime. You can enjoy it. That's the point that's we are thinking of previously, and then there's come a chance. I know Martin, and then I know some of our team members in our group, and then we started to imagine, think about how can we move forward, and then let's come to it.
Yeah, I think that's it gives a lot of perspective also what is here locally in Hong Kong. I know this is only my 3rd time visiting, but every time I'm here, there's a new corner that's unlocked and a new story that I'm learning about. So there's so much that we can learn every day when we take the time to listen and build community, right? And I'm curious if you have any insights or what you can share with us on how you've successfully built community here in Hong Kong through storytelling, through the messages that you insert in the restaurant. So how have you developed a successful community here in Hong Kong? What are your pro tips?
I think because I was, when I opened in 2013, it was also when Instagram started. And it was very interesting because things were changing. This was when Netflix started. There was Chef's Table. There was all this interest in food. So it was very natural to, because food was exciting and you could see the energy. And so how we built community, one was that I think I was always very authentic. And when we built the concept, it was true to myself. So it was true to my background. It was true to what I loved aesthetically. I thought about the music, how we wanted to serve people. So because I went to school in the US, just talking about hospitality, we treat our colleagues and our guests as equal. And it sounds really weird because you can go to certain countries and the service and the guests can be different. So it could be like, ma'am, would you like another wine? Or it's a certain, whereas if you're equal, you're like, hey, David, would you like another drink? And it's like you need to be equally as polite to each other. So those were very because I was acting as founder, so you could feel it through the service speech, you could probably feel it how we communicated online, how we wrote our messaging and how we sent EDMs. It was very true to a voice. And I think that because the project itself was like that, then you can very easily build a certain type of community. Our guests are usually very generous, very nice, I think, overall, because we attracted a certain type of people to love us. We were always very true about, supporting, female leaders. So, of course, the Women's Foundation loved us, and we gave opportunities for a lot of creative people. I remember when we designed Happy Paradise, which was, some mistakes there, but when the interior designer came to Hong Kong, I didn't edit his work. I just let him execute. And it was the same I treated for my team, my collaborators, and I built a certain level of trust. And so, I'm still happy today when I'm older now, but when 20-year-olds come up to me, they're like, oh, you're OG and you were so cool. When you were doing it, no one was doing it. So I think that is the sense of community we built, and that people see you and you practice kindness through your team, and you can feel it through the energy, and that's the kind of software that we built. And so we've been very lucky. We've been, we talk about restaurant years like dog years, you can survive 12 years. That's but we really made it interesting because if I was just doing pork belly bows, I think I would be very bored, if I was doing 100 pork belly bows every day. But it's because of the storytelling and the human connection that drives me to want to do more.
Respect, authenticity, and creative freedom. I think when we create that ingredient, it develops a story on its own. And I think when I think back to my story, having started at 12 years old, I didn't have a business plan, I didn't have a strategy, no marketing plan or even a budget, but there was this clear vision and this clear sense of focus of what I wanted to achieve, what I wanted to build. And I think when that end goal is there, you cut through the noise naturally because you're coming from a place of pure intention and leading by example. So when we think about storytelling, there's a really beautiful concept that I'd love to share with you tonight. And it was something I learned from an indigenous young leader in Australia. And it's a concept called didiri. And this is an indigenous word that actually cannot be translated into the English vocabulary because we simply don't have the capacity to translate this with one word. And that says something, right? So what it means, didiri, what that means is listening, but not in the way where we listen in a normal conversation, but it's listening with your entire being. You listen through your ears, but you listen through your eyes, recognizing the body language. You listen to how that message makes you feel. It is an entire embodiment of what listening can actually mean. And when we talk about storytelling for impact, that other side of listening actually has to be actively put into practice. And I think as change makers, when we build communities, when we're hosting these tours, when we're stepping into the story, it's an element that we actually have to learn how to put into practice today. And with that, I would love to open the door to the audience for any questions that you might have of what sparked an interest or that you'd like to know a little bit more from these three incredible change makers and storytellers we have with us tonight. Does anybody want to kick us off with a first question?
Hi, my name's Nicole, and I would like to know, thank you so much for organizing the workshop. It was amazing 3 days. And I wonder, throughout your career as a change maker and a storyteller, what's the challenge that you face the most and how you overcome the challenge?
Okay, nice to see you again, Nicole. Who wants to take this question on challenges and how we overcome them? It's always like, no, you take it, you take it.
Hello?
Yes.
So I think in 2013, economy was very good. I came out with my first concept and it was really well received, And then my second restaurant, and then the third restaurant, I think my ego got to me. So I was like, I want to open a restaurant, best restaurant in Asia, Michelin star, but also super cool, diversity, inclusion, and neon lights and all these things together. If I could go backwards and look at my own, it's like movie makers, that was critically acclaimed but commercial flop. And to be honest, the reality was that we live in Hong Kong. When your project is not commercially viable, that means I was personally losing a lot of money. To lose 150,000, 200,000 Hong Kong dollars a month is not easy because it is the reality. And so every day, I remember when people used to tell me oh, these neon lights, I can't take Instagram photos. I was like, I don't care. We're trying to be different. And then I remember 6 months later, I was like, we need to get some spotlights in here. So the thing was that what I was trying to do is I wanted to tell so many stories at the same time in the same project, and I didn't really think about the audience. So people who love food don't really drink cocktails, they like wine. LGBT people that want to go to a gay bar might not want this. And I was just thinking about what I wanted to present, and so I had to dial back, I remember my chef then even put a chicken feet with a middle finger on the plate as we Chinese people eat chicken feet, I was like, okay, the chicken feet needs to go, out of the important messages we need to send, delete that one. And then we're music, okay, music is cool, but it's not really important, so we lowered the music. And then we're like, okay, we need to win as a restaurant first, and then we support LGBT issues. So we had to kind of reconfigure through 5 years. And especially when you say you want to do, I was like, I want to do something that's never been done before, means no one knows what they're doing. Because you don't know how to take advice in a certain way. Because if they tell you like, hey, that's not how you do that, I'm like, but we're trying to do something never done before. And then you start like, okay, there are best practice in the world, like you don't have to change everything at the same time. And so I think that was interesting, and I think that because we were so bold, even when we deleted and came to its center, it was still very like kind of inspirational, and it was still, but it doesn't happen maybe even month 6. It might not even be Happy Paradise, it might be my next project or next project. But you're kind of constantly learning how to tell the story better and how to engage better and how to deliver, and that takes experience and lots of failure. Yeah.
I agree on the. In that way, what you described, we work in very different fields, but that's a very similar thing between our careers then, or our projects, having to do something, working on something that no one has done, or there's no template for. Because it's the same with immersive media. We literally have to invent new solutions for many of our projects. And usually these ideas begin with like I wonder if we can do this. Like we had a story, we made the first ever 360 video documentary about wild lions. So we filmed that, and when we came back, National Geographic Society had funded that, and we came back with the footage and were animated because we had been able to film lions in a new way for virtual reality. We're like, wow, this is going to be absolutely amazing. We sent the footage, and the editors in the media side, they couldn't even look at it because the technology, they didn't even have the technology to look at what we had filmed. So I had to literally kick in the doors of a few people at National Geographic and say like, hey, here is how you watch this. And when they saw, when I broke down that door, then they were like, oh my God, this is amazing. And this is one of the their most watched 360 videos now. So, but that's the thing, you have to see, when you know, like you do with your food concept, like when you know that you're onto something, you're not sure that everyone else is going to understand. You have to kick in a few doors, you have to be loud and make sure that people get it, because otherwise you won't be able to break that barrier. And that is hard, and that takes a lot of getting used to, but it's just something you have to if you want to do something innovative and make a change.
For me, I think that how to spend the time wisely is very difficult. As a entrepreneur myself, as a son of my family, as a caretaker myself, to take care of my family members, I think that it's really hard to try to spend across my time during daytime, nighttime on a storyteller, as well as spending time to allocate my time and effort, as well as keeping healthy at the same time. So that's come down to a point, who am I? What am I doing? And why am I doing my job? I think that's right now I enjoy doing what I'm doing, and then I know my vision as well as my mission. But this is a journey for me. I talk to so many people. I talk to myself. I go running. I go hiking myself. I think a lot. I think that this helped me to distill the 6 words sentence. Who am I? And what I'm talking right now. What message I want to share to my audience. So I think that is one of the key things as a storyteller, knowing who you are, and then deliver a clear message to your audience.
Thank you. I think we each got from all of them very important different lessons, from focus, community building, knowing who you are. I think as a 23-year-old, I'm still in that phase where I'm like, okay, it's a work in progress. There are so many different things to do. The to-do list is forever growing, and there's the frustration that the world isn't changing fast enough, and then super fast with the technologies that are all happening. So how do we keep up? And then remembering to be grounded. And I think something that I stay very strong is that we grow in the direction of the questions we ask and the stories we tell. So I'm a big believer in the curious mindset, and always keeping an open mind to learn from other people that you surround yourself with, of which tonight we have an incredible group pulled together by Swire Trust, National Geographic Storytellers Collective, and of course the wonderful space of 1880 here tonight. So I think we have time for one more question. Would anybody like to ask a question? Yes, here in the front.
First and foremost, thank you very much for the panel and for the discussion that you have opened up. I remember and I've heard you talking about storytelling and how it's a big process. Part of it being intention and how it matters, part of it arrogance as you're expanding and telling your story. Could you tell us a little bit about how to integrate pure and good intention with the story that you want to create, and how do you take that in the long term?
Thank you for your question. Does anybody want to get us started?
Can I ask again? How you keep pure and good intention?
How do you set your intention to tell a story that you want to create?
So you keep going for the story you want to see in the end, is that what you mean?
Yeah, and how do you set on the right path and continue going down it?
Yeah, that is the hardest thing, really. It's a very good question, because that is one of the hardest things, because whenever you're chasing a story that you want to tell, first of all, it's going to change, and if you're working on a documentary story, of course you want it to change as you follow people or animals or a situation that you want to portray. You want to follow those changes, but there will always be other pressures, like there will be budget and time constraints and editors wanting to shift it one way. But if there's one thing I've learned, it's to, I think it's a good way to, you don't ask for permission, you ask for forgiveness, and not even that, really. You rather break the rules. The more, I guess I grow more arrogant with that the longer I come in my career, but if I know where the story is best, even if an editor or funder or someone will try to affect it, I will perhaps do a version that they want, but then I'll do the version I believe in and show them that. And usually they choose that in the end, because they realize that is the better one. Because I've got to do my job, and if I put all that time in, I get to know a story, I'm probably going to be the one to make a good version in the end. So breaking a bit of rules there and trying not to get too affected by how people are trying to steer you, commercially or otherwise. Yeah.
Our brief may just mention that being authentic. We run over 1,000 of tours every year. That is not by only single dozen, but by hundreds of dozen from our team. We will not provide them with a script. Instead, we facilitate them to let them to share their own story from their own feelings, from their own living stories. And that because we truly believe that every one of us can become a storyteller. And then we, as a facilitator, as a trainer, provide them with the choices, and then to stay with them, and then let them to share their own stories. And that's from our viewpoint.
I think a few things. I think one is, earlier we said community and alignment. So if you have your intent and you're true to yourself and you pick your partners, and every day you have to make choices. And then you can also give up every day. So one is that is your intention something that you really drive you every day. So every day meaning if you, like I plateaued, I would say, in my career, maybe for 4 years. But when your restaurant makes no money, it breaks even for 4 years, you still continue on. You're like, hey, we can clean the plates more. Maybe we could do this better. Like you have a certain thing that your KPIs or something that's inherently inside that's not around you. So you have to make sure that that's there. And then when I remember, like, I was like, maybe I can do like, a generic Chinese restaurant. I send the deck out, they're like, that is so not you, and rejected. So it's also when you're very true to yourself, people will tell you very truly, like, that is not what you would love to do. that is not necessarily, and I think that's very interesting because I'm always learning every day because I'm like, looking for opportunities, partnerships, and learning. But it's interesting when you even want to sway, people don't let you because they like, oh, your voice is very important and so continue on this journey and you can't do that. And I think that because I think that fundamentally your first 5 to 10 years will be very important because that's your roots. Like we talk about restaurants, we were talking the other day, if your roots don't go, once your roots are done and it already goes up and it's straight, it'll keep going straight. But once it's crooked, you can fix it every day, you can like kind of, unless you chop the tree, there's nothing you can do. So I think the first 10 years, like figure out who you really are, what you want to represent, what you want to do, and then later be great at it. But like to really put importance in that tree growing, and then everything will make sense. Like everything, like meaning your landlord, your the person that comes like you recruit, like they're like, we know exactly what you do. Like they'll show up. They're like, we know what story you want to tell. We want to tell it with you. And it's very interesting. It's a very energetic like feeling because you're true to it. And because it's not one person, you're trying to convince 1,000 people to tell your story. That's where story becomes powerful. Because if you can convince, it's so good that people forgo their own story to tell your story to other people during happy hour is a big deal, right? Because they're using their voice to share the news. And so hopefully that news is good, that you want to share something positive. And so that's what I think.
And the news is good because the formula to cut through the noise, the formula on how to change storytelling and turn it into actual impact is really simple. Do the right thing for the right reason. And when you do the right thing for the wrong reasons, you'll find yourself coming with roadblocks or frustrations or burnouts, and things won't materialize the way you want it. The way we do that is through collaboration, working with many different people who have different strengths. What you see here tonight are 4 different ways of how to create stories and turn them into impact. From food, from tours and connecting with our local culture, to exploring and accessing different parts of the world and bringing them through virtual experiences, of which I do need to give a shout out. We're about to wrap up, and if you do want to try these, come straight to the front here because we're wrapping this up at 7 p.m. They go in a bag with Martin to the airport. And so with that being said, we also have some in the back over there and over here in the front. But to tie everything together, I really want to say thank you both to Martin, May, and Luke for your time, your energy, and your lessons. I hope everybody tonight practiced a little bit of that Didiri energy of listening, but remember that your story starts in every moment, how we decide to show up in every room that we enter. And we don't have time to waste, so let's get to action and let's cheers on creating change through many stories to come. Thank you so much, everyone.